Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on our programme this week, calls to boycott French products grow across the Arab world after Emmanuel Macron clashed with Islam, the French president vowing not to give up caricatures of Prophet Muhammad. Rights groups slam a women's summit in Saudi Arabia, a conservative kingdom where some of the most prominent female activists are languishing in prisons and are being tortured. Also coming up on our programme this week, Egypt's hip-hop scene, rap battles, bragging, insults, and a whole lot of censorship. We start this week's programme with a look at the growing anger across the Arab world. This after Emmanuel Macron publicly defended cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad and made a pledge to crack down on radical Islam. And this wrath is being displayed in different ways. Some have called for a boycott of French products. Others have summoned diplomatic representatives of the country in the Middle East.
Pictures of the French president with a shoe imprint being set alight. Across the Muslim world, anti-French protests are growing after Emmanuel Macron condoned sketches of the Prophet Muhammad in the name of free speech.
Everything has limits, and your freedom ends when the freedom of others begins. It's not good. They can't insult the Prophet and say it's free speech. It's anarchy. It's a violation of values and mores.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been especially critical. On Sunday, he called into question Macron's mental capacity.
Bu bir vaka. Onun için hakikaten kontrolden geçmesi lazım.
Erdogan has also repeatedly called for a boycott of French goods, a call that's been heeded in several countries, like here in Jordan, where French-made products are being removed from shelves. It's also gone viral on social media with the hashtag Boycott France. France's interior minister has told Turkey to stay out of the country's domestic affairs.
I think it should shock each one of us that foreign powers think that French Muslims belong to them. What right do foreign powers have to meddle with France's domestic affairs?
The French government has warned its citizens living in Muslim countries to take extra security precautions.
Turning our attention to Saudi Arabia, which hosted the W20 conference attended by some of the most powerful women from across the globe. However, there were also many missing faces, among them some of the conservative kingdom's most prominent activists, like Loujain al-Hathloul. Now, according to rights groups, some of these women have faced abuses while imprisoned, including electric shocks, flogging, and sexual assault.
5 female activists currently behind bars in Saudi Arabia. Samar Badawi was previously jailed back in 2010 for leaving her father's home and has been in prison again since May 2018. She's the sister of blogger and writer Raif Badawi, who's been imprisoned since 2012. Her husband, a lawyer, is also behind bars. Nasima al-Sada has been in jail since July 2018. A minority Shiite Muslim and activist, she caught authorities' attention when she ran for municipal elections in 2015, the first Saudi election in which women were allowed to stand. Nouf Abdulaziz and Maya al-Zarani were arrested in June 2018. Both journalists, they had written articles about previous arrests. Perhaps the best known is Loujain al-Hathloul. She came into the spotlight in October 2013 when she posted a video of herself behind the wheel. It was a shocking offence at that time, 5 years before Saudi Arabia legalized driving for women. It landed her 73 days in prison. Following her release, she continued to campaign against the severe restrictions imposed on women in her country until she was jailed again 2.5 years ago.
Now, for more on this story, I'd like to welcome Hiba Zayadin to the programme. She's a Gulf researcher at Human Rights Watch. Hiba, thank you so much for being with us. There's something really disconcerting about all this. An event taking place in Saudi Arabia, the W20 summit, its main message, women empowerment. This, of course, as we just mentioned in that report, while a number of women who fought for these very rights are locked up.
Absolutely. I mean, it does sound quite unbelievable to see Saudi Arabia hosting a summit for women where women delegates, discuss issues of empowerment, issues of advancement in society, while the very women who have pushed for and campaigned for, women's rights reforms in Saudi Arabia are currently behind bars or otherwise silenced.
And of course, because it was a virtual event, people could potentially speak out without fear of arrest. Did they? Did anyone speak out?
Not to my knowledge. And we had, as an organization, other organizations as well, have called on the delegates to speak out, especially because it is a virtual event. There's more of an avenue for them to speak out safely, as opposed to had they been, invited to and traveled to Saudi Arabia. And so we had called on them. We had asked for delegates to, present a joint statement on the matter, because at this point, especially when it comes to regimes like the Saudi Arabian one, quiet diplomacy doesn't really work as well as people think it does, or as well as people hope it would. So private engagement hasn't worked up until this moment, and public engagement is really where real impact can be done and real impact can be seen, because of how sensitive the kingdom is towards its international image. And you can see that when you see it, hosting the G20 summit, inviting international performers to come to the country. There's been an increase in these kinds of international events or internationally attention-grabbing events hosted and paid for by the Saudi authorities, and that's partly to deflect from its human rights abuses, its record, its lack of accountability. And the more we see people engage with Saudi Arabia in this way, without speaking out, without calling it out for its abuses, including jailing women's rights activists in an unprecedented crackdown, really. When we see
but listen,
happen,
Hiba, you're here.
Look,
you're here talking to me about this. The relatives of these women have spoken out. We're reporting on it. You're talking about these joint statements. But is any of this actually having any impact? We know the event actually went ahead. And of course, as we've been saying, some of the biggest voices, some of the biggest global companies attended, HSBC among them.
Absolutely. And yes, so far, I mean, the women have been in jail for over 2 years now. They have not been sentenced. They're still on trial, largely and most, entirely for, their human rights activism. If you look at the charges, you could see that they are for things as simple as speaking to the press or, in one case, applying to a job with the UN. We haven't seen real movement, not on the part of states, which have not really spoken publicly or condemned it publicly, except for a few. And the women are still behind bars. And what we, as an organization, have been pushing for now is for international businesses, performers, women's rights delegates to speak out publicly, because we believe that is where real impact can happen, and not in the traditional form of advocacy with governments, because of how much impetus the Saudi government is putting on its image internationally, its desire to really launder its image on the international stage.
And of course, Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman continues to paint himself as the ultimate modernizer. On that note, Hiba Zayadin, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us on Middle East Matters. We end with Egypt, where until the recent years, rap had remained largely underground. Today, young Egyptian rappers are digging deep to make music about social norms and political life in the country. But censorship is still very much prevalent. Here's a report from our team on the ground.
A few minutes before the clash, the two young rappers practice in the hallway. Every 3 months, Alexandria's cultural centre hosts rap battles. Some come all the way from Cairo to take part. Today, a third MC has stepped in as the referee. Witty insults and clever comebacks make the crowd go wild. At 19 years old, Little V has had the better of his opponent. He says that this music is made by the youth for the youth.
Rap represents them, contrary to other musical forms that don't speak to their daily lives. We tell them about stuff happening in their lives. It is because we are young ourselves, and we feel what they go through.
In his studio, one of Egypt's rising stars, al-Hathloul, is busy remixing one of his tracks, which has had hundreds of thousands of plays online. In the space of just 2 years, Egypt's rap scene has gone from underground to mainstream.
I rapped in the street with my friends. I didn't have an online presence because back then we couldn't put our songs online. We rapped in the street. Today, everyone is on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and we've taken over those platforms. I think that from now on, making alternative music in Egypt attracts media attention.
This mediatization is a double-edged sword. 4 years ago, Kachef crossed the line here in Alexandria. The rapper and human rights lawyer had criticized the government in his tracks and was forced into exile in Germany. He believes that Egyptian rap has sold out.
Rap is to criticize the society that you are living, the situation, the political situation. It's not just to doing some rhymes and nice music and make people dance. But I can understand, I can understand and I can imagine how a person who's living in an authoritarian regime, facing all the censorship, want to do whatever they love to do and to stay safe.
The Egyptian government has attacked rap's political dimension, limiting its role as a subversive subculture. The new generation has been forced to reinvent it.
Well, that's it from us this week. Thank you for watching Middle East Matters.